Oh, oh, I lost everything. Okay. Oh, we're live. Here we go. Good. It just this show. I have to tell you, if you when you tune into this show, you just I think that's all part of this listening journey. Is you never know what you're gonna find because honestly, all of you listening to us out there, I just turned this on live and the whole screen went away, and I'm like, oh my God, where did it go? Anyway, welcome everyone. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the infamous SkyWire. Each and every week, me and my dear friends down there come together and we explore listening, and we are having probably one of the greatest times we could have. Because when you listen, you have no idea really where it's going to take you. It's the ultimate trust. You just listen and you trust. And you sometimes go with it, sometimes you don't go with it, sometimes you realize, oh, I should have gone with it, and then you realize, oh, I'm listening and it's something different. And it keeps on going. And today we're talking about no, yes, and I want to thank Barbara out on the comment stream because she said maybe. And when I heard no and yes, I didn't hear maybe when I was planning the show. So I want to thank you for that because I heard you. So I want to welcome everyone. If this is your first time tuning in, terrific. We want you to comment to us. We want to hear from you. If you're listening to us via YouTube or any other means and we are taped and it's a replay, we want to hear from you anyway. So before we get on with the show and no, yes, what the balance is, what listening does for us in our life when we are faced with saying yes, saying no, saying maybe. Before we get on with that, I want to introduce our magnificent panel that I love dearly. Gail.
Hi, so great to be with everybody. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yes, it has, and you've been missed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Katrina.
Hello, good morning to everybody, or evening, wherever you are.
And it's always good to see you too. And Katrina with that, not Katrina, I'm sorry, Margarita with that fluffy background, hey.
Hello, I'm here.
Welcome. And is it still cold where you are? Because you're sleeveless.
It's hot here. It's really hot for the first time this year. The last few days has been like 2 days at least.
Wow.
And there's thundering. There is, I don't know what the weather's like.
Well, it's good to see you warmer. And then Dave, who we think is Dave, but we're not sure it's Dave. He could be me, but then again, then who am I? So Dave.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Marilyn Shannon. And for some reason, I can't get it off my screen. It's a technical thing which is slightly above my capabilities, so I'm going to have to go with it for a little while. Anything I say, I won't take responsibility for. It will be Marilyn's fault. And that is the case for the defence.
I don't know if any of us, or me and me, are ever responsible for what we say. Who knows? And Heidi and Mark, welcome.
Hello, and welcome. And I'm wondering why you have such a low voice today. Man's voice. I mean Dave, for sure.
Yes. Well, I thought I'd be Dave today since we're passing responsibility off. You know?
You are passing this?
Yeah. I'm not Mark today. I'm Dave. You know.
Oh,
he's being
okay.
Marilyn. I'm going to be.
Okay.
That's it.
You know what? Before we get on with this no and yes thing, that's a great idea. Maybe we're going to have to do that one time. Is that we have listened to each other so much that maybe one day we do become each other, and we answer as if we are the other person, and see what that would sound like, because that would be pretty fun. So anyway, here we are, right?
Could be vicious.
So here we are talking about no, yes, and maybe. So I'm going to ask Margarita to start us off, because when we were in the green room, I asked who wanted to, and Margarita said she's had a week of no, yes, and maybe. So I'm just going to, and I'm sure a lot of us have as well, but go ahead, Margarita, why don't you start?
Okay, so this yes, no, and maybe is something that, I'm a healer, right? So I need to know something about my client, and I tune in with my guidance. And I have a gorgeous tool to do that. It's like the pendulum. You could douse it, and then you could see which way the pendulum flows. And this is tuning in with the energy of if it's true or not. And if there is not available an answer, if it's true or not true, then it says maybe. So I'm thinking when we don't have a clear answer of is it yes or no, and there is a third alternative, but maybe, because, you know, maybe you're not ready to hear something that you want to hear. Maybe you need to wait a little bit that another person or the events coming at you is going to form first, because it hasn't happened yet. So that's the maybe state is kind of cool, and we need to be patient with that. And so that the right conjunction of events coming closer can actually meet, and then we can make a choice if we're going to go there or go there. So this is kind of some people maybe think this is woo-woo, we're using a pendulum, but if you are a dowser or you use a pendulum for asking questions to yourself, it's very easy to use. It can guide you in some way of what choice to make. And if you're not going to make a choice, and you have to wait. So the maybe solution, the maybe is kind of very important, because if we rush ahead and make a choice because it's uncomfortable not to having made the choice, right? Because it's like I wanna land somewhere. I don't want to be in this uncomfortable situation. Shall I do this or this, and blah blah blah, right? And it's uncomfortable, so we want to land somewhere. And when we come to a decision, oh yeah, it's yes. But if we land too soon, then that choice might not be the best choice. So can you relate to what we're saying there? Like, oh, I decided. But then you have to change it next day because other things came up. So it's very, very important to have the patience of on the maybe, and learn how to wait for the time so you can make the decision. So maybe is a great thing. And then the commenter who says the maybe solution, that's a very, very important step. I think so. Mm. And we have in the weather here, it has been yes, no, maybe all the week. It's like up and down, and pressure up and pressure down. You know when it's going to come a thunderstorm, but it doesn't come, you just have to wait, and then you stay in that uncomfortable state. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So maybe can be somewhat neutral. You know, kind of like, okay, I'm hanging out, as opposed to just staying on the fence. And that's where listening comes in. Listening comes in to say, okay, I'm waiting for more information and I'm cool here, or I don't want to commit myself. And do you always stay on the fence with the maybe? Oh, so, and I flip a coin. Sometimes when I'm like stuck, I flip a coin and I'll just say, okay, universe, I can't hear you, so here, let me flip a coin. Well, before we go on, it looks like we have a comment. So let me get, so do you want to read it to us?
Yeah, here's Ross from Australia, getting up very early in the morning to watch us. She says, I love dowsing with my pendulum. And then she says something else. That is a great show title, SkyWire.
Thank you.
Okay, and then there was Mark, who is burning to say something.
I'm thinking of when we are looking for audiences for our shows, and we invite people in, they have a choice: yes, no, or maybe. You know, and if they say maybe, they ain't coming. You know. Hardly ever does a maybe turn into a yes in that situation. And I'm just thinking, you know, that maybe is a way of saying, how can I tell them really later what I really wanted to say?
Oh, this can be, but it can also be maybe in this case, I saw it and I appreciate you or whatever you're doing, but I cannot come. So maybe a recognition and a reconnecting also.
That was almost the opposite of what I said.
You see, there are many interpretations.
Well, I'm going to say no.
Okay, I say yes.
Well, you know, this context is everything here. You know, we use yes, no, and maybe as possibilities and as ways of navigating through who we are and what people expect of us and what we think are our obligations and where we have some leeway and how can I get out of this politely or how can I can't actually just say no. There must be some other way. Anyway, all kinds of possibilities.
That's a good point. And the purpose for us being here is to talk about all of these things and say, okay, how do I grow with this information? How do I grow my life understanding that, what do I really mean by maybe? And what is that telling me? And when I hear it means I'm too indecisive or I am insecure and I'm not standing up for myself, okay, I want to hear that. I want to know that. So then I can say, you know what? No, I can't come this time. Or I put down yes because I want to see the replay, right? So we want to hear these things, and we want to, you know, learn to listen, to be okay with putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable.
Hey,
So-
Marilyn, can I just
Go
jump
ahead.
in?
Yeah, jump in.
I love that. I love what everybody was saying. There's so much. There's so much about words that we read between the line, and just everything that Mark was just saying. But what you were just saying is that, you know, I want to know about why I say this word and why I say that word. We're really talking about self-awareness, and that's where the growth comes. You know, I mean, and that's up to us. Like you said, why did I say maybe? Honestly, you know, really be honest with yourself. Did I say maybe because I was afraid to say no because I didn't want to hurt their feelings? Did I say whatever the reason was? I think for me it just all comes down to self-awareness. You know, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Exactly. And that's why this show is so interesting. Today's episode in particular. Oh, they're all great, but today because you really can hear yourself and hear yourself through seeing yourself and how you're showing up. Like, where are you? How full are you living your life? Right? So, Katrina,
Yes.
go.
What I love about all the pieces that everyone's shared so far is that we all have a different way of tuning in to listen for our yes or our no or our maybe. Like for me, I have to feel it. Like it doesn't necessarily mean it always has to be a resounding yes, but if I'm a little iffy, like, you know, Margarita was saying, I wait on it because to me a maybe's like, meh, you know, maybe I'm not sure yet. But I do have a sense like, okay, within a day or two, I'd like to make a decision. So I'm not saying I put a timeline on it all the time, but there's a little wiggle room. When I want to say no, I pretty much just feel uneasy. Not because I'm like uncomfortable with the situation. It's just like, meh, I'm not really getting a yes in my body. So it feels a little uncomfortable. I think that I need to listen to that and say no for now. And there have been things that I've said no to, not realizing why at the time until later. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm really glad that I didn't do that. So I think for all of us, we're listening and tuning in a different way. And for some of us, we hear it in our mind. We're like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. And then you do the mental part of trying to explain your way out of it. And that's, I think, where sometimes it gets a little bit in the middle for a lot of folks. So I really try to tune into what my body's telling me because that way the mind is sort of out of the way.
That's perfect. So that's a really good point. So we do listen with our senses in different ways to be able to help guide us. Where is the information coming from? What information are we listening to that helps us decide whether we want to say yes, no, or maybe? So for Katrina, she's listening to how she feels. Maybe somebody else is listening to how they feel, and it's a gut feeling, or it's a sweaty palm, or their chest starts to, pound, or something starts to happen that you become aware of that you hear, and then that helps you make a decision. And then the idea is, can I float? Can I say yes, and then tomorrow I realize it needs to be a no? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of,
As
yeah,
Neil was saying, in that self-awareness part is that when you're clear on that in the moment doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be like that tomorrow too, because life changes and we do have to change our mind sometimes. It's just that's the way it goes. But I think mentally we feel bad about that because we appear wishy-washy or we appear as if we're not grounded and clear when life happens, and sometimes you just have to do that.
exactly. And sometimes you might say, be affirmative, and you might say, absolutely yes, or absolutely no, and be okay with that. You hear it, you feel it. And other times maybe it's no, and you're not sure, but it's also hearing you know that, hearing you say that, and hearing that it's okay.
Yeah.
That it is okay to accept yourself in saying a wishy-washy no, but knowing it's a wishy-washy no is a lot better than not knowing it's a wishy-washy no. Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I would like to bring it on a different side, on the listening side. When you hear people saying yes or no, when you live in a culture where people avoid saying no, and then they say yes, also they mean no, there you need a different way of listening. You know, we here in Italy, everybody says yes for everything, and then at the beginning, I relied on people telling me all sorts of things, and they would do this and blah, 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 and nothing happened. So we don't need only to see the words which are coming out of the mouth, but also see a little bit the context of that. And always be in a country like this, and probably in Asia, I've heard that they always say yes, but they never say no, and, also they mean no. So I don't know exactly about Asia, but I know about Italy. So it's a different thing when I say yes, because when I say yes, that I come tomorrow at 4 o'clock, 2 months, the 18th at 4 o'clock, and then I be in front of your house, In Italy, when they say yes, if you don't call them before, I didn't, oh no, what, blah, 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 blah. The yes is not, as Katrina says, the yes might be only momentaneous, and afterwards, gone. So
I guess that's like a cultural difference in a way.
Yeah.
So that's a really good.
Germans are used to say yes and no and mean it, and not everybody is.
Nope.
Okay.
That's a really good point. Because we're not just listening to how we express ourselves, but we are listening bigly to how other people express their yeses and nos. And what do you do about it? That's where the power of questions can come in. And I've often used this example. When I first married my husband and I had 2 stepsons and a stepdaughter, the boys, I would want to give them a kiss, like good morning, good night, whatever, and they would run the other way and they would say no, no. Well, I listened and I realized that wasn't maybe exactly what they were trying to say. So I would run after them, and eventually they stopped running. And now they wouldn't think of leaving the house when they see me without giving me a hug and a kiss. And they're 19 and 26. So you got it exactly. Heidi brought up a great point about the culture and listening past, respecting what you hear, listening, respecting it, and listening beyond it to see, what else do you see? So great point. Dave? Marilyn?
It looks like I'm Dave again. That's good.
Oh my God, how'd that happen?
That was fun being Marilyn for a little while. Quite liked it. Yeah, the whole business about the maybes as being sort of the pivot of either going to yes or to no is really the grey area. It's a lack of information about something, and it's as if one says, I don't have enough information to say yes. But we tend to believe that we've got enough information to say no, purely because we cannot say yes to something. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, but if we could find out why we have enough information to say no, but not enough information to say yes, what is it that commits us to that decision? And should we spend our time in the mire of maybe, because maybe is something that I certainly deal with people in strong and bad language. The difference is that strong language is something that impels you to do something. Bad language is just obscenities. But as far as language that we use, and I allude to what Mark said earlier about things like we use the word but. You know, I could have done that, but. I should do that, but. And we need to kick but out of our vocabulary, because no one really wants to hear our but go off. Try is another one that we mentioned earlier. You know, it's great, but it's not empowering. I mean, I don't know who wrote "If at first you don't succeed, try, try, try again," because it's a mantra, a recipe for failure. It's just continued. If I said I'll try and get there, are you really expecting me to be there? And perhaps is another version of try. If someone says, well, perhaps it will happen, you can guarantee it won't. And maybe is such a grey word. It's almost the same as try. And it's neither one thing or the other. And if you're asked something and you respond with maybe, then you're sending a message that I don't know. And what people really want in life is certainty. And we can only function on a level of certainty majority of the time. We like the unknown when it suits us. We like to be scared and surprised when we want to be. But the unknown has an element of fear about it. And maybe is probably somewhere, unfortunately, that we have to reside while we balance on that pivot as to what's going to take what's the direction I'm going to go? What's going to be the one that's going to take flight? And just saying no to something for the sake of it, because you haven't got the information, is wrong. Sometimes people buy things because they believe they should have them, but they don't know why they think they should have them. They've been sold something, they don't know why they want it, but they do. So they buy it, and then they regret it. So maybe it's a good area to be in, but it's also quite a negative area to live. So balancing up what we want against what we don't want, what we want to do, as long as we have conviction, and we can say, no, I can't do that because. If we can say and give a reason why we don't want to do something, then that no has a validation. We can underline it with something. And the reason I'm saying no is, but when we just blindly say no, we are closing ourselves and shutting ourselves off from a multitude of opportunity if we don't know why we're doing something, in my opinion.
Or why we're not.
Mm.
But you know, can I jump in there? Because I understand what you're saying, Dave, but sometimes you can get a strong intuition about something, like, no, this doesn't feel right to me, but you don't really know why yet. I mean, maybe it's not going to become evident until a week later or something like that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't trust that no. You know what I mean? If you really trust your intuition.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the intuition side of it is absolutely true. We all know how we all work inside. And we can say no, and we think, this doesn't seem right to me. But if we've got that intuition, eventually we will be proved wrong, or we will be proved right. and only the time will tell. But if we immediately say no, we could be closing ourselves off from the potential of doing something that we subsequently find that our intuition was slightly off. We were right about something, but it wasn't a reason enough for us to have said no. I think I agree with you about our ultimate gut feeling. You know, it doesn't pan out, and like I say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It isn't. I think it's all about the information that we have, and if we are in that area of, I could say yes and I could say no, but I'm going to say no because I don't feel I have enough information to say yes, then I think it's our duty to ourselves to get the information as to why we are going to say no. Mm-hmm. Even though we can believe deep down that there's a reason, that we can't quite, you know, this opportunity or this suggestion comes in the room like a fan going on in a room with paper, and it's flying around all over the place. We think, should I do this or shouldn't? And you wait for it all to land, but there's one piece of paper still up there and you don't see it. Until that one lands, you will never ever know whether your intuition was correct. But yeah, that is very important, girl. You know, it's the intuition side of it. Because if it doesn't feel right, it's never going to feel right. You're always going to be looking, I think.
Well, but I think things change, and like what Katrina was saying before, because if you say something, if something feels no to me right now, I feel it in my body, or I just know it. I'm saying no in that moment in time, but that doesn't mean that things won't change tomorrow. But I think, and I'm just really speaking from my own personal experience, because I've struggled with this very conversation. Do I trust myself? I'm getting a strong no. I never used to be able to trust myself because I didn't have the rationale behind it at that point, and I've done so much inner work on myself, and I feel like I finally come to the place where I have enough self-awareness where I could say, well, you know what, I don't even know why I'm saying no right now, but it's still, even so, it still feels right for me to say no, and in this moment, I'm trusting that, and I'm going with it, and if tomorrow changes, then so be it. Then I'll be in that tomorrow. I'll be in the present moment again, and I'll say, you know what? I think I'm going to change my mind. This feels right. And that doesn't mean we were wrong before, like Katrina was saying. I really think it all comes down to self-awareness and intent, and it's not about being perfect. It's really about understanding ourselves and being comfortable with being able to change our mind and being in the unknown and not having to be perfect, but just to trust the listening in the moment.
The thing is, Gail, one of the biggest signs of intelligence that we can show is changing our minds. Is because when we have all the information, we can make a considered, valued choice. If we haven't got it all, then we can't. And that's when we're in that, well, I feel that it's wrong at the moment. The challenge I had years ago in a previous life when I was a sales trainer, going to different companies, and making people understand that when a customer said no, it wasn't forever. It's no at the moment. It doesn't mean that you can't go back in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, and get them to sign up, to get them to buy. They probably will. But at the time, there's a no. And you're not party to the reason. They've got a reason, they're not sharing it. And maybe it's something that's too personal for them to share.
So let me interrupt you a second. So I want to just, because we have a comment here, but I think that a lot of what's been going on has been really terrific. And the idea of, you know, do you have enough information? And is that why you're saying maybe? So, and then it's the awareness of, I need more information, but so for now it's maybe. It's whatever you say, at least know what you're saying is what's important. And I want to go to this comment, but I also want to say that what I hear coming up sometimes is, and I want to question this, and maybe this is not a great time to question it, maybe this is another show, but I'm questioning, can your intuition be wrong? Or is it always right? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I always thought that when I heard it, and it was my intuition, it would be right. I can't imagine tapping in to that intuition can be wrong. It's what do I hear that is not really my intuition that I think I'm hearing my intuition. So I think that's an interesting conversation. But before we go on, let's look at this comment first. Is that all right? Heidi, you want to?
Yeah, this is Elaine, our how can we say, co-SkyWire. She says she is on the road and listening via iPhone, and she has, as often, a word play to offer. And she says, indeed, when you listen and intend to be a healing presence, sometimes that opening to clarity gives you a nope as the proper response to an invitation. And she's sorry that she is not with us here in the panel.
Well, we miss you, and we're glad that you're with us no matter what, even though we can't see you. And once again, I want to thank everybody that is listening. And Miss Betts, I'm really delighted that you are here as well, because I know there have been many times that you have tried to come in, and now you are, so that's great. So who wants to pick it up from here? Margarita?
Yeah. So now we come to the next phase here of listening, because now we're dealt with the maybe, right? But the no, to say no to somebody, that takes always for myself, because if I say no, then I don't want to offend somebody. And then the Eastern countries, they don't say no at all, because that means that there is a conflict here, right? No, I don't accept you, or no is meaning that they don't agree with you, right? And that's to be avoided. So I think we're conditioned when we say no with this emphasis. You have to be really strong inside, because when you say yes and are authentic with it, that means that you are going to commit to it. And so when we are having a question to us which requires a commitment, are you going to buy something, or are you going to come for my party, whatever, especially in a sales situation, they are more likely to say, maybe, right, they want to avoid offending. They want to avoid that because they don't want to commit. And yet they're a little bit interested, but they're not going to sign up. So this is like a psychology. And I think that what Gail said, that we have this feeling no or feeling yes, right? This is conditioned from our past experiences. And so if a person have a lot of different patterns and responses to things, they want to avoid the pain that they had before, and then they want to have the pleasure that they know about. So that's how they form this answers of yes and no. And so if a person have developed and started to clean up some of those triggers inside, so that the emotional responses is more controllable, let's say. And I think Dave knows what I mean here with actually becoming aware about the inside. So we know that what we can say is actually coming from our true self. And what I'm getting at here is the intuition. If a person don't have an awareness of their own inner triggers, they can't access any other way than a gut feeling, which is the body feeling, right? And not accessing the higher, let's say I call it higher, but the more connectedness to our own authentic self. So I'm ranting a little bit here, but because I just created a course about intuition, and so we're dealing with that. Anyway, hopefully that explains this. And I can come back to that it's really important to listening to your feelings about something. And if you feel uncomfortable, go for that feeling and then say what is causing that. And so you can listen to yourself. So anyone who is asking you about, are you coming? Are you going to do this? Are you going to buy this? You can actually choose to come from your authentic self rather than from your instinctual conditioned self. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're saying that the instinctual could be what our fears, our ego, what stops us from actually getting into our intuition.
Exactly.
So even though the words sound the same, let's not confuse instinctual with that can be the walls, the boundaries, all of those things, our immediate gut reaction, right? That's not our real gut authentic self. And the listening helps us separate out which is which. So it's very interesting because a lot of people fear or say or think that they say yes too much, they say no too much, and they hang on the fence too much. So this conversation is really about, understanding and listening to yourself to know when you are in the no, when you are in the yes, when you're in the maybe, and why are you there? And to take a look at your history, take a look at, do you say no a lot? Do you say yes too much? Are you trying to please people? And if you are, then maybe you want to go to the maybe instead of going to the other first. Maybe you want to go from too many yeses to maybe, or from too many no's to maybe. So hang out there and gather the information. Maybe that's a great place to go if you're doing too much of something. Hang out there a little bit and get a feel for, where do I want to go with this? Give yourself the chance to listen, to get to know yourself. And maybe in the maybe, see, nothing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Get to know yourself a little bit in the maybe, so that you know yourself a little more. So we have a comment here. So let's go to that.
Yeah. And Christopher, this was exactly the topic we were talking about. Do you see intuition the same as gut feeling? I have had a huge conversation with a person who says gut feeling can't be wrong. Yet I disagree. I think Margarita has already said hers to that, and it is addressed to you, Marilyn. So what do you think?
Hi, Christopher. Number one, I want to welcome Christopher because he keeps telling me he's coming. My gut feeling says he is. He's not. I don't know, but he is here today, so that's great. So anyway, okay. Do you see the intuition same as a gut feeling? I have a huge conversation. So I think Heidi just said we were just talking about that, and that's a very interesting question. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So I think that that the listening lets us know if we are in our, let's say, our outer gut as opposed to our gut. So to me, I think the outer gut is when, that knee-jerk reaction that may be our gut, but maybe not. And you got to listen to know, is that our ego? Is that my fear? Or is that the intuition that is connected to me, the intuition, my gut, is that universal message that I am working diligently on listening to connect to? And what part of me is that? So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that sometimes we think it's our authentic self, our gut, but it's not. It's our knee-jerk reaction based on our fear, and when we tune in, we get to realize, where is that positioned inside of me, and where is that answer coming from?
Can I add a comment there?
Yeah, go for it.
So if the person is asked something, yes, no, or maybe, if they feel uncomfortable to say any one of these three words and want to gain a little time to process what the question was, we could say, Can you clarify what you mean by that? I need a little more information about it. And if you go that way, then you can actually find more information and then relate to the question that the other person asked, so that there can be an understanding, so that you can convey, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, well, I am doing this right now, so I'm not sure, but I don't think I can come, right? And so then you can navigate the communication via words, and nobody is offended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Asking questions, and working on not being afraid to ask those questions. I mean, there was a mediator that I used to really, I love the name of his book. When I was mediating a lot, I would see it. It's called Mediating Dangerously. It's going where you're scared to go. You are scared to go. You might need to go there by asking a question to help with a resolution of some sort, but you need to go. So it's putting your fear, it's hearing your fear, it's being aware of it, it's kind of putting it a little bit to the side and asking the questions that you ask with the nicest of tone and the best intention, and you ask the question. And in this case, if you need more information, not being afraid to not know, not being afraid not to, we don't know everything, and nor do we understand everybody and what their intention is. So it's putting everything on the line in a good way and saying, could you explain that? Or, being okay with not knowing. So that's a really good point. And Christopher, I hope I answered as much as I could your question. Here's another.
Yeah, it's another one of him. I mean, it's not so much a question as a comment. Givers tend to use the instinctual yes, and it becomes a letdown for the person they have said yes to when they let the person down. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. Mark wants to say something.
Oh, yeah, I'm leaving instinct out. I'm leaving, what shall I say, some of these concerns out just to simplify the conversation. But I think, a 2-year-old will instinctively say no, that they have no problem with that. And then when we get a little up and going to school and so forth, and we want to be in with people, we'll say yes. We'll go along with strange things. And our mother asks, well, if they asked you to jump off the cliff, would you? And, in a certain mindset, we probably would, But these yeses and nos, they go up the ladder of development along with us. And what we're talking about now is being at quite high levels of development, where we can talk about extremely sophisticated kinds of relationships and gives and takes and sensitivities that we just did not have when we were younger. And societies can do the same kind of thing. Margarita, you were saying that maybe Eastern societies tend to say yes because saying no would indicate conflict. And societies have these characteristics too. Some are very communal, and that everybody needs to get along with each other, because if they don't, their society will fall apart into chaos. That's the fear, And here in some of the Western countries, we talk about the individual. The hell with you guys, I'll do what I want, and that's my constitutional right, And so saying no has a different feeling, and not necessarily a personal affront to anybody necessarily. Just, yeah, he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. Oh, no problem. We are very privileged to be at the level we are, to have this kind of discussion. Past so much of that. Just given by the society response.
Well, and I wanted to add something to that too, because if you're looking at how each culture does something, how each person does something, or even how you change your behavior over time, why does there have to be a right and a wrong? who you were 10 years ago and the decisions that you made then, were those wrong decisions? Well, I can't say that if they made me who I am today. So I think that there's a judgment piece to all of that. You have to really look at what works for you, what works for your culture, what works for the people that you're connected to, how you listen to the other people that you're connected to, because all of those pieces go into you deciding, okay, what is the right answer for me at this moment that's going to help me to be in my integrity and at the same time feel okay about this choice, whatever it is. Because your intuition could really guide you towards a decision that's best for your learning, and it might hurt and it might stink, but you had to make that choice in order to learn, so down the line you're not continuing behavior that doesn't really help you or serve you. So I think there's really a judgment piece that goes with all of this, that it's different for every person, and it's an important part.
Well, I'd like to jump in here. Thank you, Katrina, because I really, really appreciate everything that you just said, especially the whole judgment part, and it really leads us, well, two things. One, it's really about, again, I'm coming back to the self-awareness, but, you know, we alone are the ones that have to put our head in our pillow at night and feel comfortable in our own skin. You know, it's not about what other people say or how other people use words or what other people say we should do. We have to answer to ourselves, and I think that, you know, this is such a great conversation because we're talking about words and how they all mean different things to different people at different times and mean different things to different cultures. And like Christopher, hi Christopher, you said before, you know, this gut feeling the same as intuition, you know, and it's like, to me it is, you know, but maybe to somebody else it isn't. And it's important to communicate effectively. We know what we're each talking about. But we have, and you know what? I lost the point of what I was going to say.
No, you were right there. You're right there.
There was, yeah, go ahead. There was something else about.
Okay, you're right there, and I think I would just add,
please,
based on what Katrina is saying and what Gail is saying as well, is even when you're too many no's or too many yeses, and you wherever you think it's coming from, it is, and there's nothing wrong with it until, let's say, you heard the show today and you realize, oh, I've been too many no's. I want to change. Those too many no's are coming from your source, and your source is just right on. Even if you think you're wrong, it's in the learning. Did you learn something? Right. And are you shifting? And if it's today or tomorrow or it's in a year from now, and then you shift again, it's all everything we do with as good an intention as we can, morally and ethically and all that kind of stuff, is all good. There's nothing wrong with anything that would, or almost anything, or I don't, you know, of what we're doing. Gail?
I remember what I was going to say, but it relates to what you were just saying. It's like we're so judgmental, you know, especially we're so judgmental about our own selves. But, you know, if we just could drop that judgment, you know, the question came up from Christopher and also Marilyn before you said, so can our intuition be wrong? You know, I mean, that's definitely worth a whole, you know, topic of the show, but just right off the bat now, we might think that our intuition is wrong in a moment, but who's the judge of that? Who's saying that the intuition is wrong right now? Are we saying it's wrong because we don't like what it gave us? Are we saying it's wrong because it hurts? You know, sometimes in hindsight, we might think, oh, wow, I made a mistake. My intuition was wrong. But you know what? 2 years later, we might realize, wow, that was exactly what I needed. That was exactly right.
That's exactly perfect. For now.
Right, for now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what we'll say next week. But for now, that makes sense to me. Heidi?
I actually don't really know what to add to that, because what I feel that Mark wanted to say is a little bit a different thing than, you know, that it is not just about changing today and tomorrow it's different, but it's saying that in a certain position where you are at, you have a limited view, and so you will decide in a different way than when you are growing up. when your view is opening up, and so you have a different, also a different intuition, because intuition is nurtured by what you have learned in the meantime. It's not something which comes out of the sky exclusively. So the more you have an open mind, the more your decisions will be different. And this, he wanted to say, it's valid for the person in the personal development, but also in cultures, because cultures stay in the center of gravity in different levels of development. And so in some cultures, some things are okay to do, and there is an according, how do you say, an understanding about that inside the culture. Another culture doesn't have it, and there the misunderstandings happen. So I think it's important to see that, and we are always the advocates of seeing the levels of development and how they work in ourselves and how they work in different cultures. So even in our own history and the history of our culture, things have changed, and they not just change a little bit, boom, 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 boom. They change in a very, let's say, predictable way.
An example of that would be someone in World War II saying no to the war, and someone during the Vietnamese War saying no to that war. The culture had changed. It was not actually a matter of thinking and considering and so forth. It was a different time, a different context, and so for Vietnam, we could say no by the thousands. And what could they do about it? But say no during World War II, we would have found ourselves in uniform anyway with no gun, just a bag of medical supplies. Get out there. You know, so these contexts are so determinate, you know, and we have moved on from that Vietnam no to other levels of possibility too. We're not where we were, and it's not a matter of horizontal back and forth. We have to be conscious of the vertical climb we're making in this in these changes.
Go ahead, Dave. Because go ahead. Did you want to say something? Addressing that, because I think that's important. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been talking about the last couple of minutes is slightly different from what we started out with, and it's really a good example of how these conversations that we have progress and become more in depth and highlight the intricate component parts of what seems to be an overall generalized topic. We've all got our different ideas about what is the grey area, is the maybe, the intuition, the gut feeling, the gut reaction, but that's because we're all the same in our own unique way. We have our own uniqueness, which leads us to work out of a particular context that somebody else doesn't. It doesn't mean that one of us is right, and it doesn't mean that one of us is wrong. But it does mean that Gail and I can be trapped in an elevator together for 3 hours and just talk and change each other's minds about something, that when we leave, we have a different perspective, which is something we addressed before, perspective. But we have a different understanding. And because we're intelligent human beings, we change our minds. And there is no one size fits all. There is no prescription that suits everybody. It's a context. We create something in our mind that this is how I will work. This is how I'm going to run my life. If I get information, I'll assess it, I'll interrogate it, and I'll make my decision on that. And if I don't have all the information, it might be that there is no more information for me to have, which will make me worry that they can't back it up with anything else. And we make a decision at this moment in time, and we live, unfortunately, in a world where the majority of people live their lives carrying the past around with them. and they carry it into their future. Whereas we are living now. And even what I said then is now in the past. We are a constant moving organism into the future. When we carry the past around with us, we cram our future with the past, and there is no room for us to create a future that we want to, because it's full of the past. And that past is the thing that conditions us, and it determines how we assess, how we work our ideas out, what we believe, our understandings of something. We are conditioned by that past. And as Margarita said earlier, and I can take it very quickly into something else, is in sales training, you align a person with all the decisions they made in the past when they bought something and it turned out to be really great. And then you go, hi, you stand in front of that image, because you want them to believe that your product is going to be exactly the same fantastic experience. If you did the opposite and got them to remember all the things where it went terribly wrong and they lost all their money and they were almost bankrupt, and you stand in front of that and you go, here I am, they won't buy from you. So it's what we reference in our past. As long as we just reference that past and not carry it with us. But it's the decision that we make is based on our gut reaction, our gut feeling, our intuition, and the information. I work from information, others may work from intuition, some will work from gut reaction. But what it will do is it will colour and influence the decision that we make. And if I said to you, it's now 1984, I've got a great idea, I want to share it with you, so I want you to listen carefully. Tell no one about it, but I want you to be part of this because I've got a plan. I've designed something so great that I reckon it will sell millions, and this is it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What do you think? Great idea, right? Turtles are big, 6 foot tall, human size, carry backpacks instead of shells. They keep all manner of stuff in them. They're named after Italian Renaissance painters. They wear blindfolds so nobody recognizes them. I haven't figured that one out yet. Their boss is a rat. They live in a sewer. They only eat pizza. They do kung fu. They fight crime. All I need from you is $20,000. Are you in? Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody had presented that to me, I would have said, are you nuts? And yet, Hasbro, the biggest toy maker, said no and turned it down. A very small independent toy maker started to make them. Hasbro bought the company and continued to make them. At that moment, it seems like a bad idea because the way it's described, the way it's said, the way it's depicted, every piece of information that they got was no. And that was over 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So what decision is it that we're making? What information is different for everybody? Mm-hmm. And we have our own points of reference, and right. It doesn't make us right, it doesn't make us wrong.
And let me just say, because we have a minute, 2 minutes left, and I just, in summing up a little bit, everything that we've ever done on this show is about, we don't come up with one answer. We might come up with 10 different whatevers. The idea is, will you listen a little differently? Are you listening a little differently the next time? What are you getting a little bit different today? Where is listening taking you this moment? You know, are you changing something? Are you staying where you are because you love it? Because that's what your listening is telling you. That's what it's about. Are you listening and accepting whatever? Can you join this conversation and add a piece because you hear something different that just adds another piece to our listening puzzle and to this puzzle of life? That's what it's about. So in closing, I just think this conversation was fabulous, and I really thank everybody that's participated. And each and every one of you had great comments. So Dave had a great summation about, you know, the toy industry and somebody saying no and and people do that all the time. Somebody misses a book opportunity and somebody else says yes. what? Don't beat yourself up. It was just kind of like a meant to be thing, maybe. Learning experience. Maybe you don't say no the next time, or maybe the next time you say yes. One little comment from somebody in closing besides me. Katrina, you want to go?
I would say the more that you can listen to yourself, build that sense of self-awareness, and actually honor yourself in those choices, you'll know that you're not wrong, and that's the biggest heavy burden off your back.
Is knowing you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Releasing the wrong.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is it for today. We'll be here next week and with another really extraordinary conversation. This is probably some of the most brilliance you will hear ever. Come back. We'll see you next week. And everybody, thank you for being here. And we'll see you next week.